Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining our Evolve 365 Microsoft Tips and Tricks session today. We wanted to start this weekly series to give simple and easy tips that anyone can go back to their desk and quickly implement. We know your time is valuable, so we strive to keep sessions to no more than 30 minutes, sometimes less. We also push the topics out monthly, so you only have to sign up once for the monthly series instead of 4 or 5 times. And if you ever miss out on a session, you can find the recordings on our Planet Technologies YouTube channel at youtube.com/user/planettechnologies. So a little about myself. I'm your host, Tanya Kaiser. I have more than 15 years experience with project management across multiple industries, including technology, legal, nonprofit, and construction. I'm also a longtime Microsoft geek and SharePoint nerd. And one of the things I enjoy helping others learn is new skills, whether it be with applications they're familiar with like Office or something completely new to them like SharePoint or Windows 10. If you ever have any questions after a session, please feel free to reach out to me on Twitter, LinkedIn, or send me an email. So a little about Planet. Planet has been providing expert support in the Microsoft world for over 18 years. We offer full services for the entire Microsoft Cloud and Productivity Suite, including advisory, deployment, and training services, mobile application development and solutions, and strategic business consulting, including technology, compliance, and security guidance. So we're going to go ahead and kick things off today, and this week we're talking a little bit more about Windows 10 and specifically some settings that you can modify and update to have a smoother experience. So we're going to show you how you can use some new features in Windows 10 to view past file history in previous versions, how you can check on your storage and background applications, and then how you can add some quick links to your taskbar. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is file history in previous versions. So this is a really great option that's built into Windows 10, and this works really well if you don't already have OneDrive for Business or even a personal OneDrive account. So this is really ideal when you have those local files saved on your C drive, in your Documents folder, in your Pictures folder, and you want to make sure that you have a backup of them. Or in the case of documents, if you accidentally save over something, we know that all happens from time to time. You open a document, meaning to save a copy, and then you're editing the original document. So this will work very, very similar to SharePoint and OneDrive, where it's saving the versions of the files. So some things that you need to be aware of with file history in previous versions. This does need to be turned on in Windows 10. It's not on by default. It does require some external storage, so if you're working on a personal machine, that can be either an external hard drive that you also use for your computer backups. It can even be something as similar, and simple as a small flash drive, or if you're working in a work environment, it can be a network drive or a file share. One great thing about this is that you can exclude certain files and folders. So if all you want to back up is just that Documents folder on your local machine, you can exclude all of the other files. Now the default that I'll show you in just a little bit is to run every hour and to keep the versions forever, but you can adjust those settings. Now the biggest thing that people need to be aware of is that this is not a full system backup tool. It's only preserving those files and versions in your library. So that's what you typically see, your documents, your pictures, your videos. This isn't going to be the full Windows backup tool that we used to have. File history actually replaced Windows backup in Windows 8, but now with Windows 10 you can get to those version histories a lot easier, but you do have to turn it on first. So if you have a machine and you haven't really seen this before, this is just a screenshot of what it looks like on my own personal machine. So you can see on the left-hand column, we've got our libraries, right? We have our desktop, our downloads folder, our documents folder, and our pictures folder. Now for me, the only one that I have this turned on for is really my documents folder. Now you can see when I have that middle column, I have a file selected, and when I right-click on it and hit Properties, you can see that I have the option to look at previous versions of it. So I have on my own personal machine at home, which is my primary device both for personal use and for work use, I do have an external hard drive that's connected to it, so that's where my files are stored. But again, it can be simple as attaching a USB drive to the back of your machine on your workstation. So I'm going to show you really quickly how you would go through and set this up. So the first thing that you need to know is that this can be set up through the control panel. So if I click my Start button, one thing about Windows 10 is, of course, you have these menus here for Start, But if you click the Start button and then you right-click, you can easily pull up the control panel. So a lot of people don't realize that you can click that Start button and right-click and see a whole lot more menu there. Now, if you're going through the control panel, you're going to go into System and Security, and then you'll see that you have an option here for File History. Now, you have some other sub-menus, but we can just click directly into File History. And this is a demo account, so it hasn't been turned on at all. And you'll notice that right away, it's prompting me and saying we don't have a usable drive because this does require that external backup. Now, if I was doing this at a work location and we did have a file share or network drives that people recommended and were accessible, I could come in and select a network location. But really, it's easy to do by just using, again, if you only want to back up a few files, by plugging in a USB drive. Now, the other way that you can get to this, if you don't want to go through the control panel, is just hitting your Start button and just start typing File History. And you'll notice that it's going to pop up and it's going to give you a prompt here, save backup copies of your files with file history, and it's going to bring you to the same location. So two different ways to get to the same place. Now I'm going to pop in a USB drive, and I'm going to click refresh on this. And now you can see that it's reading that drive, and now I have the option to turn on file history. So I can simply turn that on, and then it's active. That's how simple it is. Now, you do have some advanced settings. You can see here that I can select the drive, I can exclude folders, but what I want to point out is in advanced settings, this is where you can come in and change. Now, it says save copies of files every hour. That's a default. If maybe you use your local files a lot more frequently, you want to maybe change that to every 10 minutes. Keep saved versions as forever. You can say until space is needed and it'll prompt you. Now, again, of course we always recommend that people use an online storage solution, whether it be SharePoint or OneDrive for Business. This is not necessarily the recommended workstation that I would give for somebody who's using this for work. We would never really recommend that people store all of their files on their C drive because it's just a matter of a disaster waiting to happen. And I've personally had that happen. So I would say until space is needed. You really wouldn't want to do 1 month, 3 month. If you have a file in your documents that you maybe only come and update every month and you accidentally overwrote that, if you have it set on 1 month, you're not going to be able to recover that. So we can say keep save versions until space needed, and it's really that simple. You click Save Changes and you're back at that menu. Now the other great thing about this is you can exclude folders. So by default, it's going to put all of your folders here in your library. So that's your desktop, your downloads, your documents, pictures, music, and videos. The only one that I'm really concerned about is my documents. So I may want to come in and just add in all of these other files to it, and you can select them one at a time, and it'll add those in there. And you're really just saying, you know, don't back these up. Don't save versions of them. That's all I want is my document. So this is, again, my personal setting. If you're working with more media, you may want to keep those pictures and videos in there. But really the one that I'm concerned about is the Documents folder, which is the default location for anything that I create on my machine that I'm not sending to SharePoint or OneDrive for Business. So this is really it. Now if I go over to my documents, you can see that I've got a file in here. And if you wanted to restore one of those versions, you would simply right-click on it, go down to the bottom under Properties, and you'll have a tab here for previous versions. Now you can see I just turned that on, and I created this file this morning. I haven't made any changes, but it's already tracking that I have that version in there. So this was just a dummy document that I came in and updated. I created it this morning, and I'll show you the document. It just had some dummy text in it, but if I came in here and, you know, change the title, and maybe I changed all of the text in this, it's going to track all of those versions for me. And again, this is very similar to the way SharePoint or OneDrive would work, and it's directly doing this within Windows 10. Now this was very, very hidden in prior versions of Windows, so I love the fact that Windows 10 made this more accessible. So I just made a change to that file. If we came in here and refreshed the screen, we would see that it was now updated. And if we checked back in 10 minutes, it would have the other version in there as well. So again, something really, really easy that you can do if you have the occasional file on your local machine that's stored in your documents and not in SharePoint or OneDrive, this is a really great feature. Now, depending on your machine's capacity and how it's running, this is going to be something that's running in the background. So you may find that you set it to 10 minutes, and that's using a lot of your machine's resources, and then you come back and change it to 30 minutes or every hour or something of that sort. So again, something to be aware of, just keep an eye on it. But it's really, really easy to come in, again, right-click on those, and then you have the options to either open in file history or completely restore. And the more versions you'll have, you'll be able to select those versions. So that's one great feature that I really, really love in Windows 10. Again, the thing to know is that this is not a full system backup tool. So this is primarily for documents is what I use it for, and that's what I highly recommend it for. Those files that occasionally make it onto our C drive, we know that that happens. It's a temporary thing, or it's a workaround, or they're personal files. But you still want to implement a full system backup with an external hard drive. So the other thing that I wanted to show you today is how you can check your storage in Windows 10. This is something that was harder to do in past versions of Windows. You really had to kind of go into fine detail and see what apps were using that. But Windows 10 just makes it a much cleaner interface. And I think this is a great thing, especially as we get into more machines that are using solid-state drives. So when we were making the switch to solid-state drives, it wasn't uncommon to have a desktop or a laptop with a 500 gig or even a terabyte hard drive, but solid-state drives generally start out much smaller, as small as 56 gigs, 128, 256 is becoming more and more common, but compared to 500 gigs or a terabyte, that's still much less storage. Of course, with cloud applications like Office 365, we don't need as much storage, but if you're working with a lot of media or a lot of really lengthy documents, that hard drive space can really, really start to get crunched down. So I love that you can come in and easily view what apps are using what storage. The other great thing that it tells you is all those little apps you may not even be aware of, and you can remove them or uninstall them. Even though there's some Windows 10 apps that you can't uninstall from the interface that I'm going to show you, it gives you an idea of how much space they're really, really using. So this is a really simple one to check. You're going to go into settings, your system and storage, and then you're just going to take a look at the drive that you want. So on the primary machine, that's typically going to be the C drive. If you had multiple drives on a machine, you could go through them one by one. So again, I'm going to hit my start button, and in this case, I'm just going to go to settings, and we're going to go directly into our system settings. And then if you scroll down, you see you have all of these links here, but the one we're going to look at is storage. I'll go ahead and expand this to full screen. Now here's where I think the Windows 10 interface gets a little bit tricky. You can see that there's different drives on here. I have the USB drive that I just attached, and I have my primary C drive. I wouldn't naturally think that I can click on this, but you can actually click on that. So if you notice, this is just me highlighting the drives, but it would seem like it's not a hyperlink. So just be aware if you see these things within the Windows settings menu, you might be able to click on them and not realize it. So you see it's going to populate some system here. And as it goes through, it's really cataloging everything that is on this machine. And once it's done, again, it looks like I can't click on them, but I'll be able to click under apps and games and see how much storage every single app is taking up. So we'll give it a minute to run through that, and if it takes a little bit longer, then we'll move on to our next one. But once this populates on your system the first time, you can come back and check this periodically and see, which are the apps that are using up the most of your storage. Now on this machine, I've got a standard regular hard drive. I don't have a solid state drive like I do on my Surface Pro 3, where it matters a little bit more what kind of storage I'm using. But again, it's a really, really useful feature to be aware of in Windows 10. So let me see if it'll let me click into apps and games. It hadn't really populated all of that information yet, but you see I clicked into apps, and now I can go through this list. I can even search it, or I can sort it by name, and I can go through each one, and maybe I want to sort this by size. So we want to see what are the apps that are using the most information. And we can see right away that OneDrive for Business is using a bulk of the storage, which makes sense because that's where I primarily store all of my files. I do have some media applications on here. So Camtasia is a video recording piece of software that I use for a lot of demos and conference materials. And I can just go through my list. Now, one of the things that you'll find is that you have some of these installed default Windows app that you may not be aware of are taking up quite a bit of space. So if you scroll through this list, you can see that there's the built-in Windows 10 app that I don't use, so maybe that's one that I would want to come in and uninstall, but because it's built into Windows 10, I can't really uninstall it. Now I can click into advanced options and say, well, you know, maybe the app's not working right, that's why I'm not using it. I do have the option to reset it. So not only is it going to show me storage, it's going to give me some additional options directly within this menu. And if I keep scrolling down, there's going to be some of those other installed apps, you know, like Groove Music, Health and Fitness, and you'll notice some of them you can. This one is dim, so I can't uninstall it, but I can uninstall that Health and Fitness one. So it's using a really small amount of storage, but some people like to have their machines running very, very lean and only the apps that they want. And I could easily come through directly from this menu and uninstall that. And as you scroll through, you'll find more of those. So a lot of, you know, I don't play solitaire at all. I can come in and uninstall that. You'll see a lot of the background information. We generally recommend not to mess with any of those. Those are done through the Windows updates. But you get an idea of who's running the storage. Now this is a demo machine, so I don't have a lot of separate applications here. When I look at this same menu on my Surface Pro 3, it really helps me see what applications are using the bulk of the storage. And in addition to OneDrive, it's a lot of my Adobe Creative Suite software that I do have installed. I don't have the cloud versions, Camtasia, that video recording software, and then other things like that. So it's a great tool to keep an eye on your storage, what's on your machine, and then an easy way if you wanted to clean up your machine, if you really didn't want Solitaire on there, you could easily uninstall it. Now the second way that you can uninstall applications themselves is just by hitting that start button and then typing in uninstall. It's going to give you change or remove, and that'll open up in the control panel itself. Very, very similar. The Windows 10 interface is very much more user-friendly and GUI and visual, but you can see that you can come in here to all of these and see the same thing just in a slightly different view. What you're not going to see here is a lot of those built-in Windows 10 apps. So you can see that even from this location, you can't uninstall them. Again, multiple ways to get the same amount of information. You have the size here, but I think the Windows 10 gives you just a little bit easier view of it. So the other thing that we wanted to look at, in addition to checking your storage, was those background applications. So these are applications that have information running in the background on your machine. Turning some of those off can conserve power. So if you have a brand new machine but you notice that your battery really never lasts as long as they say it does, you may not be aware that there's a lot of little simple apps that are just turned on the minute your machine is on, and you can actually control what those do, very similar to what you would do on a mobile device. So this is going to be, again, in the settings menu, but we're going to go back. So I'll close this out for apps and games, and we'll just go back to our Windows key, hit that gear, which always tells us we have a settings menu. And in this case, we're going to go over to privacy. Now, Windows 10 has gotten a lot of flack about a lot of the privacy information, how it's going to broadcast information out. But again, all of this you can completely control from within the settings. So in our case, we want to scroll all the way to the bottom and look at background apps. So again, this is going to be any app that's running in the background, even if you're not using it. It's the same way that our mobile devices work, Windows 10 works. You turn on your machine, and these things are going whether you know it or not. So if you can quickly see here, there's a lot of different things, and by default, they're all turned on. So I really don't need Xbox running because I don't use anything here. I could care less about the weather because I get that on my mobile device. Travel, depending on what you're using your machine for, if you have a lot of reminders and maybe you know, bought some of the apps or installed some of the apps from the Windows Store, you may want to keep that on. I don't care about sports. I don't want that live tile showing up. I really don't use the reading list app or the reader. I don't have a Windows phone, so that absolutely can turn off. I'm not using paid Wi-Fi and cellular. So you can see if you go through this list, there's a lot of different things that you can turn on and off. And again, by default, they're all turned on. So it's really easy for you to come through and control what is running on your machine. And this new Windows 10 settings interface just makes it easier to use. And you can see just by going back through these, I can turn things on and off very, very easily. Alarms, again, how you're using your machine, you would want to do it. And it's that simple. Now if I turn some of these off and then I notice an app isn't working, it's really as simple as coming back in and turning it back on. Maybe I decided I do want that weather back on, and that's how easy it is. One other area that you can come in and check here, you can see that in the privacy settings, you can go through and change a lot of different things, and they're just toggle buttons. So even though we're only looking at file history and storage and background applications here, if you've never explored your Windows 10 screen, this is a great area to come in and look and just see, and they're pretty self-explanatory. Send Microsoft info about how I write to help us improve typing and writing in the futures. Let websites provide locally relevant content by accessing my language list. If you wanted to, you could turn all of these on and off. One that I always recommend is turning your location off. That's just a personal preference, but a lot of people are concerned about privacy. If you went in and this was turned on and you turned it off, you can then scroll down and clear your location history. And you can even choose which apps use your location if you did want to have it on, but have only certain applications use that, like the weather app. So if you're traveling and you go from San Francisco to DC, it'll automatically update the weather. But a lot of different settings in here. The one thing I mentioned is to remember that you can scroll down. So there's not an indication other than this scroll bar that there's more stuff there, and it's so clean visually that it's easy to miss that. And very much like in the settings menu that I showed you with storage, you may not realize that you can click on some items, but if you click and another menu opens up, that's another good tip to know when you're working with the Windows 10 system settings. So again, a really quick look at your computer, how you can clean up your storage. You may be surprised at some of the apps on there that are using storage, and you can uninstall those directly, despite the fact that not all Windows 10 apps can be uninstalled. There are a few that can. And then if you want to know what apps are running in the background, this can help you conserve power. And again, if you have a device with a lower processor, that also may help your machine run a little bit smoother as well. Now the next thing that I want to show you is just a couple of built-in tools that you can add to your taskbar. So these are, again, already done. I'm one of those people who likes to have all of my links exactly where I want them, and this is something that can be really helpful if you like them. And the good thing about it is, just like turning those things on and off in the system settings for Windows 10, you can add or remove these at any time. So the ones that we want to look at specifically are address, links, and desktop on the taskbar. So the taskbar is what hangs out here at the bottom of your screen. And again, I'm right-clicking on the taskbar. You can see I have a settings menu. So if you've never really modified your taskbar at the bottom, I like to use small icons. It's really easy to turn that on or off. If you're somebody who wants larger icons, that may be a really small change that you can make that'll make your day much, much easier. I tend to work on smaller screens, so I use small ones. And then again, the other thing is you can automatically hide it if you want to, have it drop down when you're using an application and not visible all the time. And then you can come in too and you can add these different toolbars. So I can add an address bar and it pops up right there. I can add a links bar, so if I had any bookmarks, and then I can also add a desktop bar. Now what each of these do is this address bar lets me type directly into here and open up a website. That simple. The links bar, I don't happen to have any bookmarks, but if I did have bookmarks, it would give me a little pop-up and show me what my bookmarks are. So even if this address bar takes up too much space, you would want to maybe add the links one. And the desktop gives you a quick link. You can see the two little arrows there to all of the locations on your computer. So I didn't have to go and open File Explorer. I can do this all directly from my taskbar here at the bottom. Now the other thing that you can do with the taskbar is you can add and remove all of these links on here. So if you know that every single day you come in and the first thing you do is open up your mail, you can have this on your start bar, but maybe you want to have Outlook be part of your taskbar. You can say pin to the taskbar and have an Outlook icon. So it's just a matter of preference. People either like to have them on their desktop as an icon. Some people like them on their taskbar because it's a smaller icon, and some people like it pinned to start. And you can have it in all three locations if you want. So there's Outlook on the start window, there's Outlook on the taskbar. It's really a matter of preference. Now as you have applications open, they will show up on the taskbar, but once this closes, that one's going to go away. So if I close out our file history button, that one went away on the taskbar. But know that you can move these around as you like. So if you want to reorder them, you can do that. And if you try out the address bar, maybe we wanted to look at the GoPlanet website, we can pull that up and it's going to remember those addresses for you. But if you decide that's taking up too much room, it's really easy to right-click on the taskbar, go up to toolbars, and then turn it off, and it's that simple. If I don't have any bookmarks right now, maybe I don't want the links one on there either, and I can turn that off. But again, these are built in, and it makes it just a little bit easier. You don't have to go and open up File Explorer and then browse to something. I can do that directly if I wanted to go to my library and go to my documents folder. I can go right to that document and open it up without even leaving my screen. So really, really easy to move around within this. And you can see that I'm clicking. I can click on that and just open them up. Very, very simple. So just another little menu that will let you move around easier. You can try those out. And again, it makes it super simple. If you don't like them, you just go ahead and remove them. So if we go back to our documents folder, I just want to do a quick check on our properties. And we can see that we still have our previous version here. So again, that file history and previous versions is running in the background. As I make changes, it's going to pick those up and keep track of those, and then I can restore the versions. So moving back to our presentation, you've seen some tips in Windows 10. Now, Office 365 has constant changes that always affect the way your employees interact with programs, but Windows 10 has a bunch of new features as well. And this is one of those things that if you're not working in it daily because it's just an operating system and it sits in the background, but you know there's stuff out there that can improve the way your employees work. Maybe there's one thing that they open every day and they really just want that to work. One thing that we have that can help you is Evolve 365. This is a subscription-based help desk service from Planet Technologies. It offers on-demand self-help. We have more than 28,000 videos that are searchable, that people can come in and take, including videos on Windows 10 and also 7 and 8 if you're not up to Windows 10 yet. We also have add-ons available for live support, vision and planning, and every subscription comes with a dedicated Office 365 trusted advisor like myself. So we do have a free trial site available if you want to go and check out some of the content on there. We have a sample of about 200 videos just to show you the look and feel of how the videos are. The majority of our videos are 30 seconds to 1 minute long, and every now and then you'll find one that's 2 or 3 minutes, but these are really quick and easy videos. We're not going to make your users sit through hours of training to find out the one tip that they needed to make their day better. If you're interested in signing up for the free trial, you can go to freetrial.o365support.com. You can always find more information on our full website at o365support.com. And if you have any questions about the service or you'd like to request a demo, you can always email us at info@o365support.com. Now we do have a couple of more webcasts coming up. Tomorrow we're having a special SharePoint webcast on creating simple dashboards using out-of-the-box web parts directly within SharePoint. That's happening tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern, and it's going to be given by Jennifer Mason, one of our SharePoint MVPs at Planet. You can register on that by going to go-planet.com/events. We've also put the link in the chat window on the GoToMeeting. We're going to be kicking off our Tips and Tricks December series next week, and we're going to be talking about SharePoint permissions, Skype for Business, specifically when you're having meetings with Skype for Business, SharePoint libraries, and then at the end of the month we're going to cover some tips that you can use to clean up your inbox and get to that zen of inbox zero at the end of the year. Again, if you ever miss a session, you can always find the recordings on our Planet Technologies YouTube channel at youtube.com/user/planettechnologies. I hope this was helpful for everyone today. I know Windows 10 is new for a lot of people, whether they're using it at home or at work, but I hope these tips were helpful, and I hope to see everyone online next week.